My name is Otto Freeman. I'm 69 years old. I spent 43 years keeping planes in the air, and last Thanksgiving, my own daughter-in-law made me eat my turkey dinner in the garage like I was some kind of embarrassment. I remember pulling up to Kyle's house that afternoon, my old Ford pickup looking small next to the BMWs and Lexuses lining his cul-de-sac in Anderson Township. Nice neighborhood, the kind where every lawn looks like it's measured with a ruler. I'd driven 40 minutes from my place in Northside, carrying a pecan pie I'd bought from Kroger and wearing my cleanest flannel shirt, the blue one I save for occasions. I was excited. Thanksgiving meant seeing my grandkids, Emma and Lucas, 9 and 6 years old. I hadn't seen them in 2 months. Rachel answered the door before I could knock. "Otto," she said, not "Hi, Dad," or "Happy Thanksgiving," just my name, flat as cardboard. She stood there in the doorway, blocking it slightly, her eyes moving from my face down to my jacket, my old Delta maintenance crew jacket, the one with my name stitched over the pocket. I'd washed it 3 times that week. It was clean, but the way she looked at it, you'd think I'd rolled in motor oil. "We weren't sure you'd make it," she said, which was strange because I'd confirmed twice. Behind her, I could see into the dining room. The table was set with real china, cream-colored with gold trim, candles, cloth napkins folded into some kind of fancy shape, and I could count 6 empty chairs from where I stood. "Before you go any further, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I want to know I'm not alone in this. Come in," Rachel finally said, stepping aside just enough. I walked in, pie in hand. The house smelled like roasted turkey and something sweet, probably one of those expensive candles Rachel likes. From the living room, I heard voices. Rachel's parents, Robert and Susan, sitting on the leather couch like they owned the place. Robert gave me a quick nod. Susan smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hi, Otto," Susan said. "Still driving that old truck? Still runs?" I said. Rachel took the pie from my hands without looking at it. "I'll just put this somewhere." Kyle appeared from the kitchen. My son, 34 years old, lawyer at a downtown firm, wearing a sweater that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill. "Hey, Dad," he said, but he didn't hug me, didn't even shake my hand. "Kyle," an awkward pause, then Rachel cleared her throat. "So, Otto, we have a small situation," she said, her voice cheerful in that way people use when they're about to tell you bad news. "The dining table is completely full. Robert and Susan are here, obviously, and we've got place settings for the kids, and there's just no room." I looked past her again. 6 empty chairs. I'd counted them clearly. "But," Rachel continued, "we set up a nice spot for you in the garage. It's quieter out there, more comfortable. You can eat in peace." She handed me a paper plate, thin, flimsy, the kind you'd use at a church picnic. Robert chuckled from the couch. "Probably prefers it that way anyway, right? Less formal." My stomach dropped, not from hunger, from understanding. While I sat there in the cold, listening to them laugh about people like me, I realized my own son had become someone I didn't recognize. The garage was attached, but unheated. November in Cincinnati means 40 degrees, maybe colder once the sun starts dropping. Kyle's black BMW sat there, polished and perfect, next to Rachel's white Lexus SUV. I found the folding chair Rachel had mentioned, a metal one, the kind that leaves lines on the back of your legs, positioned next to Kyle's workbench. The workbench was covered in sawdust from some project he'd apparently started and abandoned. I brushed off a spot and set my paper plate down. Someone had given me turkey, mashed potatoes, and green beans. No gravy, no stuffing, no roll. I sat down and the metal chair creaked under my weight. Through the door that led back into the house, I could hear everything. The walls weren't thick, and Rachel's voice carried. "Oh, Mom, you have to see the fabric samples I picked up for the boutique," she was saying. "Imported linen. Absolutely gorgeous." Rachel had been talking about opening a high-end clothing boutique for 6 months. Something about curated fashion for discerning women. Kyle was financing it. I didn't know the details. Nobody asked my opinion. Then I heard Robert's voice, loud and jovial. You know what I love about this neighborhood? You don't see any of those, what do you call them, blue-collar types. Everyone here has some class. Laughter. Susan's high-pitched giggle. Well, Robert, some people are just rough around the edges, Susan said. Look at their hands. You can always tell. More laughter. I looked down at my hands. Scarred knuckles. Calluses that won't ever fade. Permanent grease stains under 2 fingernails, no matter how hard I scrub. These hands rebuilt jet engines. These hands kept 700 people safe every time a plane took off. These hands paid for Kyle's apartment at Ohio State, paid for his books, his law school tuition at UC. I worked double shifts at the Delta maintenance hangar at CVG Airport for 4 years straight, so my son wouldn't graduate with debt. 16-hour days, overnight shifts. I missed his college graduation because I was in the hangar working on a turbine failure that couldn't wait. He graduated summa cum laude. I was proud. And now he was in there, in his beautiful house with his beautiful wife, laughing along while her father mocked people like me. Kyle, honey, you really elevated yourself, Rachel said, her voice syrupy. Law school, this house, marrying into our family. You've come so far from where you started. I waited for Kyle to say something, to tell them his father was a good man, to remind them who paid for that law degree. Silence. Then Kyle's voice, nervous, trying to fit in. Yeah, well, hard work pays off, right? And he laughed. My son laughed. I picked up my fork. The turkey was already cold. The potatoes had no butter. I took a bite anyway because I didn't know what else to do. My hands, those rough, scarred, working hands, trembled slightly as I set the fork back down. I wasn't hungry anymore. 4 empty chairs, 4 full place settings, and I suddenly understood this wasn't about space at all. I finished what I could stomach, which wasn't much. Then I stood up, folded the paper plate in half, and walked back into the house to find the bathroom. I needed a moment to collect myself, to breathe. The bathroom was down the hall, past the dining room. I had to walk right by them. The table was even more elaborate up close. Crystal glasses, silver candlesticks, a centerpiece made of pumpkins and autumn leaves that probably cost $50 at some decorator shop. Rachel sat at the head, gesturing with her wine glass. Mid-story, about a vacation they were planning to Napa Valley. Kyle sat to her right. The kids, Emma and Lucas, sat across from each other, picking at their food. Robert and Susan flanked the other end. And then I counted. Rachel, Kyle, Emma, Lucas, Robert, Susan. 6 people, 10 chairs, 4 completely empty, place settings still there, plates, silverware, folded napkins, glasses, like they'd been expecting guests who never showed. Rachel had lied to my face. There was plenty of room, more than enough. She could have seated me between the kids, next to Kyle, anywhere. She just didn't want me there. I kept walking, didn't stop, went into the bathroom and closed the door. I stood there looking at myself in the mirror above the sink. The lighting was harsh, fluorescent. It showed every line on my face, every gray hair, every year. But I looked presentable, clean-shaved, hair combed. My flannel shirt wasn't fancy, but it wasn't dirty. It wasn't offensive. I didn't smell like oil or sweat. I'd showered, put on deodorant, brushed my teeth. I looked like a 69-year-old man who'd worked hard his whole life and was trying his best. I wasn't an embarrassment. I just wasn't rich. And in Rachel's world, that was the same thing. Something shifted in me right then. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was clarity. The kind that comes when you finally stop making excuses for people and see them for who they really are. I'd spent the last 2 years trying to fit into Kyle's new life, trying to be quieter, smaller, less of a burden. I stopped talking about my years at Delta because Rachel's eyes glazed over. I stopped wearing my union jacket because Susan once wrinkled her nose at it. I started parking my truck down the street during visits so it wouldn't clash with the neighborhood. I'd been shrinking, begging for respect with my silence, and it hadn't worked. I washed my hands, dried them on the decorative towel that probably wasn't meant to be used, and walked out of that bathroom a different man than the one who'd walked in. I went back to the garage, put on my jacket, zipped it up. I was done begging. I didn't slam the door, didn't make a speech. I just left, because sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is walk away. I walked back through the house one last time, past the dining room where Rachel was holding court, describing her boutique vision in detail, the reclaimed wood shelving, the vintage chandelier, the Instagram-worthy aesthetic. Robert nodded along like she was presenting a business plan to shareholders. Kyle glanced up as I passed. Our eyes met for half a second. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't, just looked back down at his plate. Then I heard a small voice. "Grandpa?" Emma, my granddaughter, 9 years old with her mother's blonde hair and, thank God, none of her cruelty yet. She was waving at me from her seat, her face confused. "Why were you in the garage?" she asked. Rachel's head snapped toward her. "Emma, eat your dinner." "But why?" "Emma." I waved back at Emma. I tried to smile. My chest felt tight, like someone was standing on it. "See you later, sweetheart," I said. I walked to the front door. Nobody followed me. Nobody said goodbye. I stepped outside into the cold November dusk. The sun was setting behind the houses, turning the sky that deep orange-purple you only get in late autumn. The air smelled like wood smoke from someone's fireplace. Thanksgiving evening. Families inside. Together. I climbed into my truck, started the engine. It coughed once, then caught, and pulled away from that perfect cul-de-sac with its perfect houses and perfect lawns. 40-minute drive back to Northside, back to my rental, a small 2-bedroom duplex I've had for 3 years, since Margaret passed. It's not much, but it's mine. Rent's cheap. Neighbors are decent. I parked in my usual spot, walked inside, hung up my jacket. The house was quiet. No laughter, no conversation, just the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the kitchen clock. I opened the fridge, pulled out leftover meatloaf from 2 days ago, put it on a plate, and microwaved it. 2 minutes. The microwave beeped. I sat at my small kitchen table, the one Margaret and I bought at a yard sale in 1982, and ate my meatloaf alone on Thanksgiving. And somewhere between the first bite and the last, I made a decision. I was going to call my old crew from Delta, the guys I worked with for 4 decades, the ones who never made me feel small. It was time for a change. When a woman who made you eat in a garage suddenly starts calling you dad and pouring your wine, you don't need to be a genius to know she wants something. 3 weeks passed after Thanksgiving. 3 weeks of silence. I didn't call Kyle. He didn't call me. I went to my weekly coffee meetup with some of the old Delta crew at a diner in Oakley. I watched football. I fixed Mrs. Patterson's leaky faucet next door because her son lives in Denver and never visits. I lived my life. Then my phone rang on a Tuesday evening. December, cold outside, dark by 5 o'clock. I was sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee, watching the Bengals recap, Rachel's name on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Otto?" Her voice was warm, sweet, like honey poured over gravel. "Rachel." "Hi, I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. How are you? Are you eating well? You know, we've been worried about you." "We," as if she'd been losing sleep. "I'm fine," I said. "I'm so glad. Listen, the kids have been asking about you constantly. Emma especially. She keeps saying, 'When is Grandpa coming over?' It just breaks my heart." I didn't say anything. "Anyway," she continued, her voice brightening even more, "I wanted to call and invite you to dinner. This Friday. Just family. No one else. I want to apologize properly for Thanksgiving. That whole thing was it was a misunderstanding, and I feel terrible about it. A misunderstanding. That's what we were calling it now. I don't know. Rachel, please, Otto, I really want to make this right. Kyle does too. The kids miss you. We miss you. Come at 6. I'll make pot roast. Isn't that your favorite?" I'd mentioned pot roast once, 2 years ago. She'd been paying attention after all, just storing it away for when she needed it. "I'll think about it," I said. "That's all I ask. See you Friday, Otto. Take care of yourself." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there with the phone in my hand, suspicious as hell, but also curious. curious enough to go. Friday came. I drove to Anderson Township again, that same 40-minute drive, but this time, I felt different, calmer. I wasn't hoping for anything. I was just watching. Rachel answered the door in a cream-colored sweater, smiling wide. "Otto, come in. Come in. You look great. Is that a new jacket?" It wasn't. She knew it wasn't. The house smelled like pot roast and rosemary. The dining room table was set for 5. No Robert and Susan in sight. That alone told me volumes. "Where are your parents?" I asked. "Oh, they're in Florida for the month, visiting friends." She waved her hand dismissively. "Just us tonight." Kyle came out of the kitchen, looking relieved to see me. "Hey, Dad. Glad you came." We shook hands. His grip was firmer than last time, like he was trying to communicate something. Emma ran down the stairs and hugged my leg. "Grandpa, you're here." "Hey, sweetheart." I ruffled her hair. Lucas peeked around the corner, shy, then waved. For a moment, just a moment, it felt normal. Then Rachel put her hand on my shoulder and guided me to the table. "Sit here, Otto, at the head. You're the guest of honor tonight, the head of the table." 3 weeks ago, I'd eaten off a paper plate in the garage. During dinner, Rachel transformed. She laughed at my stories about rebuilding a turbine in Atlanta during an ice storm. She asked questions about my Delta days, leaning forward like she was genuinely interested. She complimented my incredible work ethic and said how much she admired people who really know how to fix things. She served me first, refilled my wine before I asked, called me Dad twice. Kyle seemed lighter, like a weight had lifted. The kids were happy. It was pleasant, and I didn't believe a single second of it. I knew something was coming. I just didn't know what. But I was patient. I've always been patient. And people who want something always reveal themselves eventually. She wanted $40,000, the exact amount I'd saved over 40 years of fixing planes in the middle of the night. After dinner, after Emma and Lucas were sent upstairs to brush their teeth, Rachel stood up and walked to the kitchen. She came back carrying a glossy folder, the kind with a clear plastic cover and professionally printed pages inside. She set it on the table in front of me, like she was presenting evidence. "Otto, I want to show you something I've been working on," she said, sitting down next to me. "Too close. I'm really excited about this, and I think you will be too." Kyle shifted in his seat, cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable, but didn't speak. Rachel opened the folder. The first page read, "Refined, a luxury boutique experience," in elegant script lettering. Below it, a watercolor sketch of a storefront with French doors and a striped awning. "I'm opening a boutique," Rachel said, her eyes bright, animated in a way I'd never seen. "In Hyde Park, high-end women's clothing, accessories, personalized styling services. It's going to cater to sophisticated women who appreciate quality and exclusivity." She flipped through pages, showing mood boards, fabric samples, floor plans. She'd put work into this. I'll give her that. "I've already scouted the perfect location," she continued. "A corner space on Edwards Road, right near that French bakery everyone loves. The demographic is perfect. These are women who spend money, who value curated fashion. Curated. Sophisticated. Exclusive. Her vocabulary had expanded. "I've got suppliers lined up in Italy and France. Imported linens, silks, leather goods, things you can't find at Kenwood Mall, personal styling consultations, private shopping events. It's going to be Instagram-worthy, visually stunning." She slid the folder closer to me. "The startup costs are $40,000. That covers the lease deposit, initial inventory, website development, marketing, and operating expenses for the first 6 months." There it was, $40,000. I've got $42,000 in my savings account. 40 years of extra shifts, overtime, working Christmas weeks when other guys took off. Money I'd planned to leave to Kyle and maybe help with the grandkids' college someday. Money I'd earned one calloused hand hour at a time. Rachel was still talking. "I know you've been smart with money, Otto. Kyle's told me how carefully you've saved, and I think this could be a really good investment for you. A guaranteed return. Once the boutique takes off, and it will, you'd see profit within the first year." Kyle finally spoke up. "It's actually a solid business plan, Dad. Rachel's done her research. The market analysis is sound. It could be, a good opportunity. A good opportunity. For who? Rachel reached over and touched my hand. Her fingers were cold. You'd be helping your family build something, Otto. Building a legacy. And I promise, we'd make you proud. I looked down at the business plan. The numbers were detailed. The projections are optimistic. The photos of boutique interiors were beautiful. I looked up at Rachel. Her smile was wide, expectant. Her eyes were watching me closely. I looked at Kyle. He wouldn't meet my gaze. Then I looked back down at the folder. My face showed nothing, but inside, I was calculating something else entirely. She apologized, but her eyes stayed cold, and that's when I knew exactly what I was going to do. I could feel Rachel's energy shift when I didn't immediately respond. The brightness dimmed slightly. She leaned back in her chair, recalculating. Otto, she said, her voice softer now, more intimate. I want to address something. Thanksgiving, here we go. I've been feeling terrible about it, she continued. The whole thing was a misunderstanding. I was overwhelmed with hosting, with my parents being here, with trying to make everything perfect, and I handled it poorly. I didn't mean to hurt you, didn't mean to, as if pointing me toward the garage with a paper plate was some kind of accident. I should have made room at the table. I should have included you properly, and I'm truly sorry. Her eyes were soft, apologetic, concerned, but they weren't warm. There's a difference. You learn it over time, dealing with people. Real regret has weight to it. It shows in the face, in the body, in the voice cracking slightly. This was a performance. We really want you to be part of things going forward, Kyle added, nodding. Part of the family, part of what we're building here, part of things. Vague, conditional, dependent on what I could offer. Rachel's hand was still on mine. She squeezed it gently. I promise you, Otto, future holidays will be different. You'll always have a seat at the table. Always. Always. Unless I said no to the $40,000, then always would disappear pretty quick. Upstairs, I could hear water running. Emma and Lucas brushing their teeth, getting ready for bed. Innocent kids who had no idea a transaction was happening in the dining room below them. No idea their mother was using their grandfather's love for them as leverage. I looked at Rachel for a long moment. Then I slowly closed the folder. I picked up my wine glass, took a slow sip, set it down carefully. I'll think about it, I said. Rachel's smile faltered. Just for a second. A brief flicker of frustration, maybe annoyance, before she recovered and the smile returned, bright as ever. Of course, she said. Take your time. It's a big decision, but I really think it could be wonderful for all of us. That flicker told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't sorry about Thanksgiving. She was sorry she needed my money now and had burned the bridge too early. She didn't want me at the table. She wanted access to my bank account. And Kyle, my son, the one I'd worked double shifts for, the one I'd sacrificed for, he was willing to let it happen as long as it made his life easier. I stood up. Thank you for dinner, Rachel. It was good. I'll call you in a few days, she said. We can talk more then. I nodded, said goodbye to the kids upstairs, drove home, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. I told my son no, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. 2 days later, Sunday afternoon, I called Kyle, not Rachel. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a direct conversation. Kyle answered on the third ring. Hey, Dad. Kyle, I've thought about Rachel's business proposal. Yeah? His voice brightened. And? No. Silence. I'm not investing, I said, keeping my voice steady and calm. I'm not giving her the money. Wait, what? Why not? Dad, she worked really hard on that plan. The numbers are solid. This could really help us. Your wife made me eat Thanksgiving dinner in a garage, Kyle. More silence. She made me sit in the cold on a folding chair with a paper plate while you all ate on china at a table that had 4 empty seats. And now she wants $40,000 from me. She can find someone else's money. Dad, come on. You're being petty. That was one bad night. People make mistakes. This is about the future, about building something. Mom would have wanted you to help family, My jaw tightened. He'd just invoked his mother, my wife, Margaret, who'd been gone for 3 years and couldn't defend herself or her memory. Margaret, who raised Kyle to be kind, to be fair, to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. Margaret, who would have walked out of that Thanksgiving dinner the moment Rachel pointed me toward the garage. Your mother, I said quietly, would have been ashamed of how I was treated. Dad, I'm not giving you the money, Kyle. My answer is no. I hung up. I sat there at my kitchen table, phone in my hand, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Freedom. I'd said no. I'd drawn a line. I'd protected something that was mine. Not just the money, but my dignity, my self-respect, my right to be treated like a human being. And it felt good. That evening, I opened my laptop and pulled up my email, found the message from Frank Delgado, my old crew chief from Delta, sent 6 months ago. Otto, got a place in Maui, 2 bedrooms, ocean view, doors always open if you want to escape the cold. Come anytime, stay as long as you want. I clicked reply. Then I opened another tab and searched for flights. One way, Cincinnati to Maui. I found one in 4 days. I booked it. It was time. I traded a cold garage in Cincinnati for a warm beach in Maui, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to be valued. The plane touched down at Kahului Airport on a Thursday afternoon. December in Hawaii means 78 degrees and sunshine. I walked off that plane in jeans and a flannel shirt, already sweating, carrying 1 duffel bag and a backpack, everything I needed. Frank Delgado was waiting at arrivals, leaning against a beat-up Jeep Wrangler with no doors, wearing board shorts and a Hawaiian shirt with palm trees on it. 70 years old, completely bald, grinning like a kid. Otto Freeman, he shouted across the parking lot. You actually did it. We'd worked together for 22 years. Same hangar, same shifts, same lunch breaks. Frank retired 5 years ago and moved out here. He'd been telling me to follow ever since Margaret passed. I should have listened sooner. He grabbed my bag, threw it in the back of the Jeep. Wait till you meet the guys. Lou's making poke bowls tonight. Fresh ahi from this morning. The drive to Kihei took 40 minutes. Windows open. Well, no windows to open. Wind in my face. Ocean appearing and disappearing between buildings and palm trees. Frank told me about the setup. 4-bedroom rental house. 2 blocks from Kamaiole Beach. Split 4 ways. Him, Lou, Dave, and Marcus. All Delta. All retired. All done with mainland winters and family drama. $900 a month, Frank said. Utilities included. Your room's got a view of the courtyard. Nothing fancy, but it's yours. $900. Less than half what I was paying in Cincinnati. The house was single-story, painted yellow, with a covered lanai out front where an older black man sat reading a paperback. That's Marcus, Frank said. Flew 737s for 30 years. Best poker player you'll ever lose money to. Marcus looked up, waved. You're Otto. Frank won't shut up about you. Welcome. Inside, Lou, short, Italian, mechanic hands like mine, was in the kitchen dicing tuna. Dave, the baggage supervisor, tall and quiet, was setting the table on the back patio. 4 chairs, 4 plates, 4 beers are already sweating in the humidity. Grab a shower, unpack, meet us out back at 20, Frank said. My room was small, single bed, dresser, ceiling fan, window overlooking a courtyard with a plumeria tree. I unpacked my duffel, 5 shirts, 3 pairs of pants, toiletries, a photo of Margaret, a photo of Emma and Lucas. I set the photos on the dresser and stared at them for a minute. Then I changed into shorts and a t-shirt and walked out back. We ate poke bowls and drank beer and talked about nothing important. Lou told a story about a hydraulic failure in Phoenix in 2003. Marcus dealt cards for a hand of poker we never finished. Dave asked if I liked hiking because there was a trail up Haleakala he wanted to try. Nobody asked me why I'd left Cincinnati. Nobody needed to know. I was here. That was enough. After dinner, I walked down to Kamaiole Beach alone. The sun was setting, turning the sky orange and pink and purple. The sand was still warm under my bare feet. The water was turquoise, gentle waves rolling in. I stood there, toes in the surf, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light. Frank appeared beside me, beer in hand. He didn't say anything for a while, just stood there watching the sunset with me. Finally, he clapped my shoulder. "Welcome home, brother." And I believed him. I didn't post those pictures to hurt her. I posted them because I was genuinely happy, and she couldn't stand that. Frank found me on the lanai the next morning, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise. "You on Facebook?" he asked. "I've got an account somewhere. Haven't logged in since Margaret died. Get on it. Instagram too." He sat down, pulled out his phone. "I'm telling you, Otto, it's the best way to stay connected. I post pictures. My daughters see what I'm up to. They don't worry. Plus, it pisses off my ex-wife when she sees how good I'm doing." He grinned at that last part. So that afternoon, Frank helped me reset my passwords and set up Instagram. Took me an hour to remember my login info. My Facebook profile picture was from 2019. Me and Margaret at a Reds game. I left it. "Now, just post what you're doing," Frank said. "Keep it simple. The phone takes good pictures these days." The next morning, I posted a photo of my breakfast. Fresh pineapple, Portuguese sausage, scrambled eggs, coffee, taken on the lanai, with the ocean visible in the background. Caption: "Living right." Location: Kihei, Maui, Hawaii. 2 days later, the four of us went out on Marcus's friend's catamaran. Clear blue water, sun beating down, dolphins swimming alongside the boat. Lou took a picture of all of us, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning like idiots. I posted it. Caption: "Good people, good life." Location: Maui, Hawaii. The following week, we went deep-sea fishing. I caught an ahai tuna, 43 pounds, fighting the line for 20 minutes. Dave took a photo of me holding it up, the ocean behind me, my face sunburned and happy. Posted it. Caption: "This is what freedom looks like." Location: Maui, Hawaii. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just documenting my life, sharing moments with people who might care. But I made sure every single post was tagged with the location: Maui, Hawaii, 4,000 miles from Cincinnati. Back in Anderson Township, Rachel was scrolling through Kyle's Facebook feed when she saw it. Kyle had liked one of my posts, the catamaran photo. She clicked on my profile: breakfast by the ocean, fishing trips, sunset dinners at beachfront restaurants, pictures of me and Frank and Lou and Dave, laughing, tan, relaxed. Every single post tagged Maui. Kyle was in the kitchen when she found him. "Your father's in Hawaii?" "Yeah, I guess so." "For how long?" Kyle shrugged. "I don't know. He didn't say." She stared at her husband. "Did you know he was leaving?" "He mentioned something about visiting a friend. I didn't think he'd just move." Rachel went back to scrolling. Post after post. Otto looking healthy, happy, free. Meanwhile, her boutique dream was crumbling. The first bank had rejected her loan application in late November. Insufficient collateral, no retail experience. The second bank rejected her 2 weeks later. The third bank, where Robert had a connection, rejected her last week with the same answer. Too risky, too speculative. She'd asked her parents for the money after the second rejection. Robert had laughed, actually laughed, and said, $40,000? For a boutique? Rachel, be realistic. You've never run a business in your life. Her mother had agreed. Maybe start smaller, dear. An online shop or something. They'd refused. Otto had been her last option, the backup plan, the sure thing. And now he was in Maui, living his best life, completely unreachable. She'd already spent $6,000 on business expenses, fabric samples, a website designer, a logo consultation, a deposit on that Edwards Road space she'd since lost, $6,000 on credit cards, with nothing to show for it. She scrolled through Otto's posts again, her jaw tight, her hands shaking slightly. He looked so damn happy, and she hated him for it. I missed my grandkids every single day, but I wasn't going to crawl back into that garage for anyone, not even them. Paradise had one problem. Emma and Lucas weren't in it. Most days I could push it down, stay busy, go for a morning swim, help Lou fix the screen door, play cards with Marcus, drink beer with Frank on the beach. But some nights, sitting there watching the sunset paint the sky purple and gold, I'd think about them. I wondered if Emma was doing okay in 4th grade. She'd been struggling with fractions last time I saw her. I used to help her with homework on the weekends, back when I was allowed to visit regularly. I wondered if Lucas had lost his first tooth yet. He'd had a loose one at Thanksgiving, wiggling it constantly with his tongue. I thought about calling Kyle, asking if we could set up video calls, FaceTime or Zoom or whatever people use now, just to see their faces, hear their voices. But I knew better. Rachel would sabotage it. She'd schedule the calls during times I couldn't make, or she'd coach the kids on what to say, or she'd sit there in the background making faces, turning it into a performance instead of a real conversation. Or worse, she'd use it as leverage, access to the grandkids in exchange for the money, for apologies. For me, shrinking myself again, I wasn't doing that, so I didn't call. Instead, some nights, I'd pull out my phone and scroll through old photos. Emma's gap-toothed smile from last summer, Lucas learning to ride a bike in my driveway, me running behind him, both of us laughing, the two of them covered in flour after we tried making cookies together and destroyed my kitchen. I'd stare at those pictures until my chest felt tight. Then I'd put the phone away and walk down to the beach. One evening, Frank found me sitting alone in the sand, phone in my lap. He sat down beside me without asking, didn't say anything for a while. Finally, "You okay?" "Just missing my grandkids." He nodded slowly. "How old?" 9 and 6. "They know where you are?" "Their dad knows." "Doubt he's told them." Frank was quiet for another minute, watching the waves. Then, "My girls didn't talk to me for 3 years after I divorced their mom. Thought I was the bad guy. Believed everything she said. What happened? They grew up, started seeing things clearly. Now we're close. Closer than we ever were." He looked at me. "Good men always get found, Otto. The kids will find their way back when they're older, when they can see the truth." I hoped he was right, but until then, I had to live with the distance. And I would. While I was watching sunsets in paradise, her whole perfect plan was falling apart, and karma didn't need my help. 3 weeks into my Maui stay, I posted a photo of a plate of macadamia nut pancakes from a cafe in Wailea. Caption: "Best breakfast I've had in years." Location: Maui, Hawaii. I didn't know that Rachel saw every single post. I didn't know she was spiraling, but I'd find out later, piece together from things Kyle eventually told me, what those weeks in December were like for her. After the 3rd bank rejection, First National, where Robert had connections that apparently didn't matter, Rachel had come home and locked herself in the bedroom for 2 hours. Kyle had stood outside the door, unsure what to do, listening to her cry. When she finally came out, her eyes were red, but her jaw was set. "I'm going to figure this out," she'd said. But there was nothing to figure out. No bank would loan her the money. Her parents had made their position clear. They thought the boutique was a fantasy, and they weren't funding fantasies. Their retirement money was for them, not for Rachel's impractical ideas. She'd heard her father say that on the phone to someone, not realizing she was in the next room. Impractical. The same word she'd probably used about people like me 100 times. Now it was being used about her. Kyle's salary from the law firm was decent, $90,000 a year, but the mortgage on their Anderson Township house was $2,800 a month. Emma's private Montessori school was $1,400 a month. Lucas's preschool was $800. Car payments, insurance, utilities, Rachel's shopping habits that hadn't slowed despite their situation. They were stretched, thin, and Rachel had already put $6,000 on credit cards for the boutique, money they didn't have, buying things for a business that would never exist. One night, Kyle sat her down at the kitchen table. "Maybe you should reach out to my dad," he said carefully. "Apologize. Really apologize this time. Explain the situation. He might reconsider." Rachel's face went cold. "I'm not begging that old man for anything." "Then we're out of options, Rachel." She stared at him, then at her phone, where my latest post glowed on the screen. Me and the crew at a beachside bar, drinks in hand, laughing. Pride and desperation fought inside her. For 3 more days, pride won. But desperation was patient, and desperation was growing stronger. She left 7 voicemails in 2 weeks, and I didn't return a single one, not because I was angry, but because I was finally free. The first call came on a Tuesday morning, mid-December. I was on the lanai drinking coffee, watching a gecko climb the wall, when my phone buzzed. Rachel's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, the notification appeared. I put it on speaker. "Hey, Otto, it's Rachel. Just checking in. Hope Maui's treating you well. The weather looks beautiful in your photos. Anyway, no big deal, just wanted to say hi. Talk soon." Casual, breezy, like we were old friends. I deleted it. 2 days later, another call. Another voicemail. "Otto, hi, it's me again. Listen, the kids have been asking about you. Emma especially. She saw your fishing picture and wanted to know when you're coming home. We should talk. Give me a call when you get a chance." Using the kids already. That was fast. I was grilling mahi-mahi on the back patio when the third call came. A week after the second, Frank and Lou were sitting at the picnic table, arguing about whether the Bengals would make the playoffs. Marcus was flipping through a magazine. I looked at my phone. Rachel again. "Put it on speaker," Frank said. "Let's hear what she wants." I did. Rachel's voice came through, and this time it was different. Thinner, shaky. "Otto, please. I really need to speak with you about something important. It's about family. About us. I know I messed up. Just call me back. Please." Her voice cracked on that last, "please." Frank raised an eyebrow. Lou stopped arguing about football. Marcus looked up from his magazine. They all watched me. I pressed delete. "Not my circus," I said calmly, setting the phone down and flipping the fish. "Not my monkeys anymore." Frank grinned. "Damn right." Lou nodded approvingly. She had her chance. Marcus went back to his magazine. Fish smells good. Over the next week, 4 more voicemails came. I listened to each one with the crew, on speaker, while we cooked dinner or played cards or sat on the beach. Each message was more desperate than the last. "Otto, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know what else to say. Please just call me back. I need your help." That last one came on a Saturday night. We were playing poker on the lanai, citronella candles keeping the mosquitoes away, the ocean dark and loud beyond the palms. I listened to Rachel's voice, small, broken, begging, and felt nothing. Not satisfied, not vindication, not even pity, just nothing. She wasn't part of my life anymore. Her problems weren't my problems. Her struggles weren't my responsibility. I'd spent 2 years trying to earn her respect, trying to fit into her world, trying to be good enough, and I was done. "You gonna call her back?" Marcus asked, studying his cards. "Nope." "Good," he said. "Your bet." I took a sip of beer, looked at my hand, pair of 8s, and raised $5. The game continued. The ocean kept rolling. The night stayed warm. Rachel's voice was already fading from my memory. Her apology took 4 paragraphs, but the real message was in the last sentence. She still wanted my money. When the voicemails stopped working, Rachel changed tactics. The email came on a Wednesday morning. Subject line, "Please read this." I was sitting on the beach with my laptop, responding to a message from an old coworker about a fantasy football league. The notification popped up. I almost deleted it without opening it, but curiosity won. I clicked. "Otto, I don't know if you're reading this or if you've blocked me everywhere, but I need to try. I need you to know how sorry I am. What I did at Thanksgiving was unforgivable. There's no excuse for it. I was caught up in appearances, in trying to impress my parents, in this vision of what I thought our life should look like, and I hurt you, badly. I'm ashamed of myself. I've been thinking about it every day since you left. I see your posts from Maui and I'm genuinely happy that you're happy, even though I know I don't deserve to feel that way after what I did to you. I want to make amends, Otto. Real amends. Not just words, but actions. I want to invite you back into our family the way you should have been all along. I want Emma and Lucas to know their grandfather the way they deserve to. I also want to be honest with you about something. The boutique plan fell through. 3 banks rejected my loan application. My parents said no. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but we're struggling financially. I put money we didn't have into business expenses that went nowhere, and now Kyle and I are trying to figure out how to cover it. I'm not asking for anything. I understand if you can't help or don't want to help. I understand if you never want to speak to me again. But if you found it in your heart to invest in the boutique, or even just to loan us some money to get through this rough patch, it would mean a fresh start for all of us, including Emma and Lucas's future. Whatever you decide, I'm truly sorry. Rachel, I read it twice. The first time, I almost believed parts of it. The apology sounded genuine. The admission of being caught up in appearances felt like real self-awareness. The financial confession seemed vulnerable, honest. But the second time through, I saw it clearly. 4 paragraphs of apology, 1 paragraph asking for money, and that phrase, including Emma and Lucas's future. She was still using my grandchildren as leverage, still implying that my money would somehow secure their well-being, as if Kyle's law degree and her parents' wealth weren't enough, still making this transactional. A real apology doesn't end with an ask. A real apology doesn't include a price tag. A real apology says, I was wrong, I hurt you, and I'm sorry. And then it stops. This wasn't an apology. This was a negotiation. I closed the laptop without responding. Frank walked over from the water, dripping wet, towel around his shoulders. Everything okay? Rachel sent an email. What did she want? Money, dressed up like an apology. He snorted. Of course she did. I'm not responding. Good. Let's go get lunch. There's a poke place in Kihei I want to try. I stood up, brushed sand off my legs, and followed him to the Jeep. The email sat unanswered in my inbox, and that's where it would stay. My son tried to use my grandchildren as hostages, and that's when I knew I'd made the right decision leaving. Kyle called 2 days after Rachel's email. I was on the lanai reading a thriller Lou had loaned me when the phone rang. I considered not answering, but something made me pick up. Dad. Kyle. A pause. I could hear him breathing, gathering himself. Look, Rachel told me she reached out. She's really struggling, Dad. Emotionally, financially. She made a mistake at Thanksgiving, but you're being stubborn about this. It's been over a month. Don't you think it's time to move past it? I marked my page in the book and set it down. Move past it, I repeated. Yeah, be the bigger person. Mom would want us to be a family. She'd want you to forgive and move forward. There it was again. Margaret, my wife, being used as a weapon. Your mother, I said quietly, wouldn't recognize the man you've become, Kyle. She would never have let anyone treat me the way your wife did. She would have walked out of that house the second Rachel pointed me toward the garage. Silence on the other end. I could picture him in his home office, sitting at his desk, probably staring out the window at his manicured lawn. We need you to come home and work this out, he said, his voice strained. Have a real conversation, face to face, like adults. I looked out at the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink and gold, palm trees swaying in the breeze, the sound of waves rolling in, constant and peaceful. I am home, son. You just don't understand that yet. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm exactly where I need to be. Kyle's voice changed, hardened. Then I guess you've made your choice about seeing Emma and Lucas. My chest tightened. There it was, the threat I'd been expecting since the phone call started. But my voice stayed steady. That's your choice to make, not mine, Kyle. I'm not the one keeping them from their grandfather. You are. And someday, when they're old enough to understand, they're going to ask why. And you're going to have to explain that you cut me out of their lives because I wouldn't give your wife $40,000 after she humiliated me. That's exactly what it is. Another pause. Longer this time. I hope you're happy in Hawaii, Dad. I am. Happiest I've been in years. Good for you. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, watching the sunset, feeling my heart pound in my chest. It hurt. Of course it hurt. Those were my grandchildren, my son. But I wasn't going to let that pain drag me back into their dysfunction. I wasn't going to trade my peace for their approval. Not anymore. I set the phone down, picked up my book, and kept reading. She destroyed my dignity for her reputation, and karma destroyed her reputation for free. I didn't know any of this was happening at the time. I only found out later, months later, through Kyle's eventual confession when things finally changed. But back in Cincinnati in mid-December, Rachel's carefully constructed social world was collapsing. It started at a neighborhood holiday party, one of those upscale Anderson Township gatherings where everyone drinks wine and pretends to like each other. Rachel went alone. Kyle claimed he had work to do, but really, he just couldn't stand the small talk anymore. Susan, Rachel's mother, was there. She'd had 2 glasses of Chardonnay when someone asked her how Rachel's boutique was coming along. Oh, that. Susan waved her hand dismissively. That fell through. She alienated Kyle's father over nothing, and now they're in financial trouble because of it. The whole thing's been a disaster. The woman nodded sympathetically, filed that information away, and told 3 other people within the hour. By the end of the party, half the neighborhood knew Rachel had driven away her father-in-law and was broke because of some failed business scheme. The whispers started at Emma's school pickup the following week. Rachel pulled up in her Lexus, parked in her usual spot, and walked toward the entrance. 2 mothers she normally chatted with saw her coming and turned away, suddenly very interested in their phones. Another mother, Jennifer, the PTA president, gave her a tight smile and said nothing. As Rachel walked past a small group waiting by the door, she heard it. A whisper, not quite quiet enough. That's her, the one who's too good for her own father-in-law. Now she's begging him for money. Rachel's face burned. She kept walking, picked up Emma, and drove home in silence. Meanwhile, 4,000 miles away, I was having the best Christmas morning of my life. The 4 of us, me, Frank, Lou, Marcus, set up a folding table on the beach at sunrise. We grilled kalbi short ribs and teriyaki chicken, made fried rice, and opened presents we'd bought for each other at the swap meet. Cheap stuff, funny stuff. A Hawaiian shirt for me with parrots on it, a bottle of whiskey for Frank. Marcus brought a small artificial tree and stuck it in the sand. We strung it with battery-powered lights. We wore Santa hats and drank mimosas and laughed until our stomachs hurt. I posted a photo, the 4 of us around the table, the ocean behind us, palm trees decorated with lights, our faces sunburned and happy. Caption, grateful for real family. 200 likes from old Delta colleagues and friends I hadn't talked to in years. Rachel saw it, and according to Kyle, she sat in her kitchen and cried alone while her family opened presents in the other room. She flew 4,000 miles to beg for forgiveness, but some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. 4 months into my Maui life, late March, warm and humid, trade winds blowing in from the ocean, I was upstairs in my room reading when I heard Frank's voice from downstairs. "Otto, you need to come down here." Something in his tone made me move quickly. I came down the stairs and saw Frank standing at the open front door, blocking it with his body. He looked back at me, his expression somewhere between confused and irritated. "You've got a visitor." He stepped aside. Rachel stood on our porch. She looked like she'd been traveling for 12 hours, which she probably had. Red eye from Cincinnati, connection through Los Angeles, rental car from Kahului. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, except smudged mascara under her eyes. She wore jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt and carried a worn leather purse. This wasn't the polished, put-together Rachel from Anderson Township. This was someone at the end of their rope. "Otto," she said, her voice breaking immediately. "Please, I flew here to apologize in person, to do this the right way." I crossed my arms, didn't step onto the porch, kept the threshold between us. "How did you find this address?" "Kyle's credit card statement, from when he helped you buy the plane ticket. The rental company was there. I called them. It doesn't matter. I'm here because I need to talk to you." Behind her, the morning sun was rising over the ocean, turning the sky pink and orange. Paradise. And she'd brought her chaos right to my doorstep. "I was wrong," she continued, words tumbling out fast. "I was horrible to you. The garage, the way I treated you, the way I only reached out when I needed money, all of it was wrong. I'm not making excuses. I'm just asking, begging, for forgiveness and for help." I said nothing. She took a shaky breath. My marriage is falling apart, Otto. Kyle barely speaks to me. We're drowning in debt. My friends won't talk to me. My parents lecture me every time I call them. I've lost everything, and I know it's my fault. I know I did this, but I'm asking you, please, to find some compassion and help me fix this. Frank stood behind me in the doorway. I could feel Lou and Marcus somewhere in the house listening. Rachel's eyes were red. Her hands were shaking. She looked genuinely broken, and I felt nothing. No pity, not satisfied, not even anger, just exhaustion at having my peace interrupted. You should go home, Rachel, I said quietly. Otto, please, you should go home. Just listen to me for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Then if you want me to leave, I'll leave. I promise. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I sighed and stepped out onto the porch, not to comfort her, not to reconcile, but to finish this conversation once and for all. 5 minutes, I said. I told her the truth she'd been avoiding. This wasn't about one bad day. It was about the person she chose to be. Rachel didn't leave. Instead, she sat down on the porch step, crying into her hands. Please just talk to me, she said through tears. I sighed and sat on the opposite step, keeping distance between us. The morning was warm, the sound of waves constant in the background. What do you want me to say, Rachel? I want you to tell me what I can do to make this right. I looked out at the ocean for a moment, gathering my thoughts. Then I turned back to her and spoke quietly but firmly. You made me eat Thanksgiving dinner in a cold garage, Rachel. She started to respond, but I kept going, while your parents sat at a table with 4 empty chairs, laughing about people like me, people who work with their hands, people with rough hands and blue-collar jobs, people who built the life that paid for your husband's education, the law degree that lets you live in that house and drive that car and send your kids to that private school. I know. I raised my hand. I'm not finished. She closed her mouth. You didn't just exclude me from the table. You humiliated me intentionally, for sport, to impress your parents, to show them that you'd married up, that you were better than where Kyle came from. And when I sat out there in the cold, listening to you all laugh, I realized something. This wasn't a mistake. This was who you are. That's not fair. Then you pretended to care about me, I continued, only when you needed money. You called me dad. You poured my wine. You served me pot roast. And the whole time, you were just setting up the ask. $40,000. My life savings. The money I earned working double shifts and overnight maintenance calls for 40 years. Rachel was crying again, but I didn't stop. You used my grandchildren as leverage. You let Kyle threaten to cut off my access to Emma and Lucas unless I gave you what you wanted. You taught those kids, whether you meant to or not, that love is conditional, that grandpa is only welcome if he's useful, that family is transactional. I never meant. That's the problem, Rachel. You never mean it. You never think about how your actions affect other people. You only think about yourself and what you want and how things look from the outside. I stood up, looking down at her. This isn't about one bad Thanksgiving. This is about a pattern of behavior, a way of seeing the world. And I don't think you can change that because I don't think you even see what's wrong with it. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. So what do you want from me? I want nothing from you, Rachel. That's the point you keep missing. I don't need your apology, your money, or your approval. I don't need a seat at your table or a place in your life. Then why did you even let me talk? Because I wanted you to understand why I left and why I'm never coming back. She apologized with her mouth but blamed me with her heart, and that told me everything I needed to know. Rachel's tears stopped. I watched it happen in real time, the shift from remorse to something else, something harder. Her face changed, her jaw set, her eyes went from sad to defensive. So you're just going to abandon your family? She said, her voice sharper now. Your grandchildren? Because I made one mistake? There it is, I thought. You still think this is about one mistake, I said softly. You still think I'm being unforgiving over one bad day, aren't you? No, Rachel. I'm protecting myself from someone who revealed something fundamental about their character. There's a difference. She stood up, frustrated now, the apology mask slipping completely. I said I'm sorry. I flew 4,000 miles to say it to your face. What more do you want? Do you want me to grovel? Do you want me to get on my knees? I want you to leave my porch. I apologized. You said the words, I agreed, but you don't mean them. You're sorry you're in trouble. You're sorry you need help. You're sorry your life isn't working out the way you planned, but you're not sorry for what you did to me. You're angry that I won't let you fix your problems with my money. Her face flushed. You're twisting everything I'm saying. Am I? Yes. I came here to make amends and you're being cruel. You're punishing me. I'm setting a boundary. That's not punishment. That's self-preservation. What about Emma and Lucas? Don't you care about them? I love them more than anything, I said, and I meant it, which is why I'm not going to model for them that you can treat people like garbage and then buy your way back into their lives with a plane ticket and some tears. Rachel stared at me, breathing hard. You're a stubborn, bitter old man. Maybe, I said, but I'm a stubborn, bitter old man who knows his worth, and I'm done explaining it to people who refuse to see it. I walked to the door. Go home, Rachel. I went inside and closed the door behind me. Through the window, I watched her stand there on the porch, arms crossed, staring at the closed door like she couldn't believe it hadn't worked. She stood there for 5 minutes. Then she walked to her rental car, got in, and drove away. I never saw her again. I lost access to my son, but I wasn't giving up on my grandchildren. They deserved better than the poison their mother was spreading. That evening, I sat down at the kitchen table with 2 pieces of paper and 2 envelopes. I wrote separate letters. To Emma, 9 years old and old enough to understand more, I explained that sometimes grown-ups have disagreements that are hard to fix, that I loved her and would always be her grandpa, no matter what, that I was living near the ocean now, in a beautiful place, and I hoped she could visit someday. I included 3 photos of Maui, the beach, a rainbow over the mountains, me and the crew holding a fish, and a small white shell I'd found that morning. To Lucas, 6 and still learning to read, I kept it simple. Grandpa lives near the ocean now, but I think about you every day. Come visit when you can. Love, Grandpa Otto. I drew a picture of a fish and a palm tree. I addressed both envelopes to Kyle's law office downtown, not the house. Rachel couldn't intercept them there. I mailed them the next day. 2 weeks later, after Rachel had returned from Maui empty-handed and broken, after Kyle had finally seen the destruction she'd caused, after he'd started to understand that his father had been right all along, my phone buzzed with a text. A photo. Emma sitting on her bed reading my letter, smiling. 1 line underneath. She wants to come this summer. I'll make it happen. I booked 2 child tickets that afternoon. Some relationships are worth the wait. That garage Thanksgiving was 18 months ago, and I'm telling you this story from my lanai in Maui, watching the sunset with a beer in my hand. Today, I'm still here in Maui. Every morning, I wake up around 6, walk down to Kamaoli Beach, and watch the sunrise with a cup of coffee. The sand is cool under my feet at that hour, the ocean quiet, the tourists still sleeping. It's become my routine, my meditation. Frank and I help maintain the rental property. Small repairs, yard work, whatever needs doing. Lou cooks dinner most nights. Marcus deals poker every Wednesday. We have a Sunday fish fry where neighbors and other retired folks stop by. We're building something here, a community, a family we chose. I've been seeing a woman named Patricia, a widow, 71, moved here from Sacramento after her husband passed 3 years ago. I met her at a community luau 6 months back. She's kind. She laughs at my stories. She doesn't need anything from me except my company, and I don't need anything from her except the same. My Delta pension stretches further here than it ever did in Cincinnati. $900 a month for rent. Groceries are reasonable if you shop local. No snow to deal with. No furnace repairs. No driveway to plow. This is home now. Through Emma's emails, she has her own account now, something Kyle set up for her. I learned that Kyle and Rachel separated last spring. April, she said. Rachel moved into a smaller apartment in Norwood, a working-class neighborhood she once would have looked down on. Kyle kept the house and had the kids most weeks, shared custody, but weighted in his favor. Emma didn't tell me why they separated. She's too young to understand all of it, and Kyle probably doesn't share those details with her, but I can guess. Financial stress, resentment, the realization that the person you married isn't who you thought they were. Emma and Lucas visited this past July, 2 weeks. Kyle put them on a direct flight from Cincinnati to Maui, and I picked them up at the airport with leis Frank had made from plumerias in our yard. They were so much bigger than I remembered. We spent 2 weeks doing everything I dreamed about. I took them snorkeling at Molokini Crater. Emma loved it. Lucas was nervous at first, but got braver every day. I taught Lucas to fish off the pier in Lahaina, showed Emma the constellations from the beach at night, the stars so clear out here, so much brighter than Cincinnati. We made breakfast together every morning, pancakes with mac nut syrup, fresh pineapple, scrambled eggs. We built sand castles and hunted for shells and drove up to Halakala to watch the sunrise from 10,000 feet. We never mentioned Thanksgiving. We didn't need to. Those 2 weeks told me everything I needed to know. My grandchildren were okay. They were happy, and they knew, without anyone having to explain it, that their grandpa loved them. They're coming back next summer. Kyle already confirmed it, and I'll be here, waiting for them, in the home I built for myself when no one else would make room for me at their table. People ask if I regret leaving. I tell them the only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. Sometimes people ask if I'm a bad father for leaving my son behind. Frank has a good answer for that. He tells them bad fathers don't host their grandkids for 2 weeks every summer. Bad fathers don't write letters and send birthday cards and answer every email. Bad fathers don't fight to maintain relationships when it would be easier to walk away completely. I didn't abandon my family. I left a situation that was destroying my dignity. There's a difference. I think about who I was at that Thanksgiving table sometimes. Silent, diminished, eating cold turkey in a garage while people I'd sacrificed for mocked everything I'd built with my own hands. Then I look at who I am now, 70 years old, sitting on a lanai in paradise, watching the sunset paint the Pacific Ocean orange and gold, surrounded by friends who value me, dating a woman who sees me as a man, not a bank account, waiting for my grandchildren to visit again, knowing they're coming because they want to, not because anyone's forcing them. I spent 43 years keeping planes in the air, making sure hundreds of thousands of people got home safe to their families. But it took me 69 years to learn the most important thing. Sometimes loving people means loving yourself enough to walk away. Rachel's still in Cincinnati, alone with her choices. Her boutique never happened. Her marriage fell apart. Her social standing, the thing she valued most, crumbled when people realized what kind of person she really was. I didn't do that to her. She did that to herself. Kyle's learning what happens when you choose the wrong partners over the right parents. When you stay silent while someone humiliates the man who gave you everything. When you use your own children as weapons in someone else's war. He calls sometimes now. Our conversations are brief, surface level. How are the kids? How's work? The weather? We don't talk about Rachel. We don't talk about that Thanksgiving. Maybe someday we will. Maybe someday he'll apologize for real. But I'm not holding my breath. And me? I'm here, finally free. That's my story. Before you go, if this story meant something to you, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment telling me if you've ever had to choose your peace over your family's expectations. And share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to walk away from people who don't value you, even if they're family, especially if they're family. My name is Otto Freeman. I'm 70 years old, and I've never been happier.